Get ready for that football show with those fantasy guys.
Hello and welcome to that football show with those fantasy guys.
And we are those fantasy guys.
We certainly are, Jay. Well, it's week number 3 in the rearview mirror, and everything you thought you knew about fantasy football, guess what? You were wrong. The NFL is just getting fired up, and let's get us fired up for week number 4.
That's right. This week is a critical week in fantasy football. I've always thought week number 4 is kind of the quarter pole, and it's the spot where you get to evaluate after week 4, you've seen your team prepare. Play. Are you 0-1? I mean, are you 0-4? Are you 1-3? Are you 2-2? You're 3-1? You got to evaluate your team now. Is this a team I'm riding and dying with, or do I need to make some drastic changes?
Absolutely. Speaking of changes, that's what happens when players get injured. Let's take a look at this week's injury report. We only feature players that are new to the list, so it's not everybody that's injured, just so you understand, because the graphic wouldn't be too big. Sam Bradford's not new. I don't know how he got on there. But Melvin Gordon, Jay Ajayi, Matt Forte, Derrick Henry, Julio Jones, Calvin Benjamin, Doug Baldwin. Fantasy implications there. Sammy Watkins, Will Fuller coming back to a questionable status, Michael Crabtree, and Tyler Eifert. Jay, who on that list is jumping out at you that you need to talk about?
I like Sammy Watkins. I've loved him since he came out of Clemson. He's always been injured. I thought the move from Buffalo to Los Angeles was going to be a great move for him. It didn't
You thought
look
it was
so
like a weather arthritis thing?
I don't know what it was, but he needed a new environment, and I think teaming him up with Todd Gurley, it allows Goff to kind of spread his wings a little bit, and if you get the type of effort from Watkins that you got on Thursday night on that late touchdown with all that effort getting in the end zone, you get that type of effort from Watkins on the outside. It's going to open up things for Todd Gurley on the inside.
Yeah, not for nothing, but all of those ex-Buffalo Bills receivers look good on Sunday night. Right. So let's get right into it with sneaky starts. Oh, Jay. Sneaky starts was not our forte last week. We are here to face the music, and that's what I love about us, is that we are here to say when we were wrong, and we're here to say when we were right. We don't run away from the gavel. So I'll let you get right into it, and then I'll take the pressure off.
Yeah, it was a rough week last week. Last week, the stars were aligned for Cam Newton, for Devin Funchess, for Calvin Benjamin to just have a tremendous week against the Saints. So I went with my sneaky start with Devin Funchess, who's not owned in a lot of leagues. They just had the injury to Greg Olsen. So it was going to be the opportunity, the remedy that we call the Saints defense that was going to let Funchess be a great value pick. He only had 4 receptions of 58 yards. He did have the 10 targets, so the opportunity was there, but there's something wrong with Cam Newton, and I don't want no part of Carolina at this point in time.
I'm with you on this one, so much so that I went out, added, and started Funchess incorrectly last week because it just the bottom fell out on it. But you're right. I mean, the Saints somehow got themselves fired up for a game away from New Orleans, where they typically don't play well, playing a tough defense, and they just came out and shredded that team. And Cam Newton had no answers, surprisingly. I think I have Cam Newton. I think he's gone.
He is definitely a candidate that if you cut him, no one's going to be like, why did you do that? It'll be like,
Yeah, I think Cam Newton is going to find himself to the waiver wire in our league this week. Last week, Jay, my pick last week is about to make your pick look like gold because I told you that Rashad Higgins should be a guy that you should go out, pick up, and start.
Who?
The week before he had 11 targets. This week, he was on the field for 53 of 77 plays. He was targeted 6 times and caught 2 of them. Now, here's the problem. The first 4 passes to Higgins were incompletes. They were early in the game, and they got away from him. They moved on to another receiver. That receiver's name was Kenny Britt, who had a great day.
Back from the dead?
Right. Now, Higgins is not a guy I think you should drop at this point with that amount of attention. Even the 6 targets in a bad day, on a bad showing, has potential. I mean, I think he's a guy that if you have room and you added him last week, you can stash him one more week, see what happens, but I think going forward, we need to see a couple good performances from him. We didn't know in week 2 how bad that Ravens defense was. So let's move on to this week. Tell us how you're going to make up for your wrongs.
This week, I'm going right back at the wide receiver position. I'm going with Paul Richardson.
I love this pick.
Versus the Indianapolis Colts. Last week, he had 2 receptions for 30 yards and a touchdown. He is 6 foot tall with Madden-approved blazing speed. On the year, he has 19 targets, 8 receptions, and 2 touchdowns. And let me tell you what, the way the Seahawks are going, their defense isn't stopping anybody, so they're passing the ball a ton. And what is the one thing we talk about? Opportunity. And with Doug Baldwin on the field, or Doug Baldwin potentially hurt, it could go 2 ways. Doug Baldwin's either going to draw coverage away, or he's going to be off the field and he's going to be the number 1 target.
Right,
so
exactly.
either way, the opportunity is going to be there for Paul Richardson on a Sunday night game to maybe save your week.
Yeah.
You know, if it's that late in the week, maybe you're down by a score, 10 points, he could get it.
Great flex option this week if you have no other opportunities. And here's the other thing that I want to talk about. The Seahawks passed last week, and Russell Wilson, like 40 times. That's the most he's ever passed in the month of September, and one of the highest passing percentages of his career. Now, the fact that they can't play defense and they can't run the ball means that he's going to be throwing the ball all year long. And if there's a problem with Doug Baldwin, this is the guy.
And that's the amazing thing is the Seattle defense can't stop anybody. Who saw that coming? They added Sheldon Richardson right before the season started to go to a dominant defense, adding a defensive tackle, defensive end, however they're using him. Just thought that was nothing. I drafted him in both leagues I'm in. I waited on Seattle's defense, drafted him, and I got 0 points out of him last week. Not a single point.
Jay, this week my sneaky start is Jared Goff, and he's going to make up for last week's incorrect decision. Yeah, I want you to just clear your mind about everything you know about fantasy football and just forget about all of your impressions and listen to a few facts about Jared Goff and the Rams offense. The Rams are the league's =1 scoring offense this season. Jared Goff has 5 touchdowns to 1 interception. He has the 3rd best passer rating at 118.2. He has the best passer rating on deep passes of 137.5. And he gets the Dallas defense that just allowed 325 yards and 2 touchdowns to Carson Palmer. Dallas's defense has allowed 6 passing touchdowns, which ranks right up there with the New York Jets and the New Orleans Saints before last week. And he's owned in 23% of leagues, which means this is a guy you can go out, you can add, you can throw him right in your starting lineup. And I believe that he is going to dice up that Dallas defense. Go out and add and start Jared Goff this week, and he's going to make me look like a fantasy analyst once again.
All right, and I love this pick.
Thank you.
I'm a big Goff fan. I'm a big Rams fan for fantasy options. They have Sammy Watkins, as I mentioned, on one side. They had Tavon Austin to take the roof off. They got the stud Todd Gurley in the backfield. And these weapons, last year, Jared Goff being the =1 pick, he wasn't used properly. He wasn't put in position to exploit what they have. Of course, they didn't have Sammy Watkins last year. Right. But I think it's a great pick for this week and potentially for a quarterback moving forward. If you're in a keeper league, he might be on a trajectory that he could be a top 10 quarterback by the end of the year.
I agree 100%, and it's just fun to watch the Rams win again.
Yes.
It's just fun. It improves the NFL football experience. Let's move on to tough sits.
Sit down, Baldo.
All right. Last week, I give up. I am banned from ever suggesting anybody sit Leonard Fournette. I have been a Leonard Fournette fan since the days where he was tearing up the SEC. Been a fan since day one. Told you about Leonard Fournette last year before the draft. Told you he's going to be the next Todd Gurley.
Told me about Kareem Hunt, too.
Yeah, told you about Kareem Hunt.
That one.
But anyways, my point being is I went with him for my tough sit. He had 59 yards. He had the 1 touchdown in the Jacksonville Jaguars' absolute dismantling of the Baltimore Ravens. A couple of things to note. We did say Jacksonville was going to be better at the beginning of the year. We did say Leonard Fournette was going to be a stud. I just thought it was going to be a bad matchup. But as we mentioned earlier in the show, maybe Baltimore's defense isn't that good.
Yeah, we had no idea. I mean, I think that Baltimore, their defensive ranking was it
a product of who they played previously?
Right, and the fact that they were able to come away with 10 turnovers in 2 games. I mean, that's an unrealistic number to be able to carry throughout a season. which is foreshadowing for an upcoming segment.
But in my defense, though, I was going with those overseas
I hear
games
you.
are tragically
I hear
low
you.
scoring.
Yeah.
I mean, it was low scoring for the Ravens anyway.
Yeah, it sure was. And you know, without the touchdown, it would have been a decent pick. Last week, I told you to sit down Trevor Siemian in a tough matchup. Well, guess what? He was 24 of 40 for 259, no touchdowns, and 2 interceptions. And as I mentioned, no one circles the wagons like the Buffalo Bills.
This week, I am coming right at you, Golden Tate. Golden Tate is owned in 99% of leagues. He started in 73+% of the leagues. Last week, he had 7 receptions and 2 touchdowns. I mean, only one of them counted, but he was really close to having 2 touchdowns. But listen to me now and hear me later. Xavier Rhodes is going to shadow Golden Tate all over the field. Not Galladay, the rookie who had a good opening week. They're going to put him on the proven veteran. And the name, Xavier Rhodes, if that does not ring a bell to you, for shame. You know him now, and he is going to shut down. He shut down Mike Evans last week. He's going to shut down Golden Tate this week. If you got other options, look strongly at those other options.
Yeah, I like this pick too, and I'll tell you why. Because I'll see your Mike Evans, and I'll raise you Antonio Brown in week 2, 2 catches, 22 yards, and Michael Thomas in week 1, 2 catches, 25 yards. Xavier Rhodes the real deal, and he's shutting people down up in Minnesota.
Yep.
I like this pick. I think it's a good one. Now, this week, I am going to go out on Jay's limb. I am going to give you a big name that you should be sitting down, and I'm going to tell you why. I'm telling you that you need to sit down Julio Jones.
Whoa.
Sit him down in a
Whoa.
home game.
Wow.
Julio Jones at home, sit him down. On the season, he has 16 catches for 265 yards, and he has yet to score a touchdown. And he's also battling a back injury. Not only that, but Matt Ryan is off his 2016 MVP pace, but even his 2017 pace is pretty good. So why am I telling you to sit down Julio Jones?
I have no idea.
Jay, you just said you were amazed. No one circles the
Oh my
wagon like the
goodness.
Buffalo Bills. The Buffalo Bills are traveling down to Atlanta to take on the Falcons, and they have yet to give up a touchdown. Now, the Bills are not going to go all season without giving a touchdown, and it may very well happen this week. But until it happens, I'm not betting against them, and neither should you. Sit down Julio Jones. Buffalo Bills, no touchdowns allowed. Let's move on to Wall Street. Buy low, sell high. As I've mentioned, I think probably every week, I love this segment so much. Jay, why don't you get us going here and tell us who you're going with?
All right, there was a big injury last week. Darren Sproles out for the year. ACL, MCL, also broken arm, all in the same play. Quite a hit. Didn't look like anything on TV.
Talk about geriatric.
Yeah, no kidding. But let me tell you what. Buy low on Wendell Smallwood.
Yep.
He's only owned in 17% of leagues. Darren Sproles is out for the year. Well, Garrett Blunt is the other back. He is literally 1/3 and 1 loss of 2 play away from not seeing the field again. And then this guy, Wendell Smallwood, is going to be in a timeshare for the first couple of weeks. He's going to be the 3rd down back, but he's eventually going to earn the starting role. He's somebody that you can get now fairly cheap. You might have to outbid somebody for him, but you can get him now. And by the time the fantasy playoff comes around, you have a solid flex option at starter because you are going to have an NFL starting running back on your roster that you can put in. Might have a good matchup where you want to put him in as your RB2 or think about him for your flex. So buy low on him now while you can.
And I like this. You're going to have to spend a little money for him because he's a hot name this week because of the injury. But the other thing you didn't mention is he's on a great offense with a great quarterback, and they're throwing the ball all over the field. That just opened things up for running backs. That's a guy you want to own.
Yep.
This week, Jay, I'm going to do it again.
Don't do it.
I'm going to give you a
Don't
big
do
name.
it.
Here it comes. I'm telling you, you need to sell high on Todd Gurley. Todd Gurley needs to go if he's on your fantasy team. I'm telling you, in year 3, Todd Gurley is delivering on our promises from last year, and he is a superstar, a stud, delivering 63 carries for 241 yards, an absurd 6 touchdowns in 3 games. Now,
How many of those were against you?
if you drafted him, you should be patting yourself on the back. But I got some bad news for you, Cupcake, because Todd Gurley is the same runner he was last year. Jay, this season, Todd Gurley is averaging 3.8 yards. Last season, he was averaging 3.2 yards. There's a lot of numbers there, I'm sorry. 0.6 yards is not the reason why Todd Gurley is doing better this season. The reason why Todd Gurley is doing better this season is because of the teams he played in the first 3 weeks, two of which who have been very poor against stopping the D, at the bottom of the rushing defense, and because of how good Goff has been doing. One thing helps the other. Now, we don't need to go back and talk about Goff again, but what I do want to talk about is the upcoming schedule for Todd Gurley. In the next 4 weeks, he plays 4 top 10 defenses, 2 of which are in the top 5. Todd Gurley is about to fall off a cliff. He's not a different runner than he was last year. He's getting better opportunities at the goal line, which I understand opportunities relate to points. We had this conversation before the show. But you are about to see a serious downtick in Todd Gurley's value. And if you're looking to bolster your team in other places, now is the time to get rid of him. I think that you could go out and you could trade Todd Gurley for some big-name players that have underperformed to this point. Like you could trade, Todd Gurley is so hot right now that you could trade him for Julio Jones and...
Oh, you're crazy, number one. We've known that the whole time. But what I'm saying is Todd Gurley, yes, he's played against a couple of defenses whose ratings aren't good against the run. That's because they played against Todd Gurley. When he plays against these top 10 defenses, he's going to knock them out of the top 10 too.
Hold on. You know how much I love stats. He's only averaging 80 yards per game through the first 3 games.
How many touchdowns?
He's averaging 80 yards per game through the first 3 games. Because of Goff. Because Goff is moving the field.
So is Goff getting traded?
No, but what I'm saying to you, though, is they're about to face a much tougher test in the next. Let's put it this way. If in 4 weeks, Todd Gurley, let's extrapolate some numbers, shall we, over a 16-game season. Mm-hmm. If we do that, Todd Gurley will have 1,200 yards. Okay, fine. That's achievable. He'll also have 32 touchdowns. I'm going to go out and make a bold statement right now and tell you that Todd Gurley is not going to have 32 touchdowns this season.
I agree with you 100%. Let's say he has half that. You take 16 touchdowns?
He's not going to have 16 touchdowns.
He's not going to get 10 touchdowns the rest of the year?
You said 16, not 10.
Yeah, 16. But he has 6.
Okay, but if he has 6 and you're saying he's going to get 10.
No, yeah.
You're saying, so is he going to get 10 more or 10 total? What are you
10
more.
What are you saying? He's going to have 16 touchdowns.
You think Todd Gurley is going to have 16 touchdowns?
Well, if he is on pace for 32 and he achieves half of that, which seems like a reasonable thing, then that's 16.
And you just called me crazy. But you're saying Todd Gurley is going to have 16 touchdowns.
I said he could have 16 touchdowns.
He's not going to have 16 touchdowns.
Is he going to have less than 10?
No, he'll probably have 10 or 11 touchdowns. But let's figure that out. He's already got 6.
So you're saying he's only going to have 5 more for the rest of the year?
Well, this is what I'm saying.
5 more.
If he ends up... Exactly. That's what I'm saying. So we disagree. Big surprise. I'm saying that now is the highest value that Todd Gurley is going to have all season long. His name is hotter than hot. The only one that's even close to him as far as name recognition right now is Kareem Hunt. And I want to give you credit now, even though you doubt me, because if everybody remembers our preseason show, we told you to draft Kareem Hunt and leave Michael Thomas on the board. And guess what? After 3 weeks of football, we were both right. So there's some TFS for you in your face. Now that's enough of that. Let's move on to weekly leaves. I've had enough.
Weekly leagues. Last week I told you Geronimo Allen was the value pick to get. His pay, what he was going to cost you, was going to be dirt cheap, but his opportunity was going to be sky high. He had 122 yards on 6 catches. That is what I call value for your buck. And if you could build a great team around those kind of numbers. This week, I'm going to give you the same exact thing. Value for your buck. You can go with the studs, your Julio Jones, your Antonio Browns, handcuffs you to put the rest of the team together. But I'm going with a guy who we've talked about probably every week on the show, and a guy who has secured the starting spot, and a guy that is playing on Sunday night, and a guy that is facing the Indianapolis Colts, Chris Carson. Seattle needs to instill a little bit of faith in their running game.
Seahawks this week.
The Colts are just what they need. Boom! There you go. To instill, a little bit of faith in their running game. 2 things are going to happen. Number 1, the Seattle Seahawks D is going to bow up and flex up on the Colts. And that is going to put the Seattle offense in a position to score some points. And Seattle wants to take the pressure off of Russell Wilson and instill a little faith in the running game. All of those factors are going to combine to a value pick. He might not have 100 yards, but he's going to get multiple touchdowns.
Wow. Big prediction on Chris Carson this week. Jay, let's move on to the Facebook question. Here we go. And I know how this one's going to turn out, too. Should I trade Odell Beckham and Dalvin Cook for Devontae Adams and Kareem Hunt? Kyle,
You're crazy, Kyle. Absolutely not. Well, wait a minute. Depends on how we're phrasing this question. If you are getting Kareem Hunt, you do this trade every single time. You do not give up Kareem Hunt, the #1 player in fantasy football, for anything. The whole point of any trade that you make is to get the best player in the trade. The best player in this trade is Kareem Hunt. He has 3 touchdowns over 50 yards. He is single-handedly carried my team. I lost David Johnson. Week 1, we were asked, how do you survive losing the #1 overall pick? It's with picks like this in the draft, like Kareem Hunt. If you have Kareem Hunt, why would you burn that golden ticket that you have? Why would you burn the winning lottery ticket? We're always talking about picking lottery tickets. You got the winning lottery ticket. You think about trading him? You're insane. If you think that that's crazy to not trade Kareem Hunt, look at the playoffs, the fantasy playoffs. Because let me tell you what, if you have Kareem Hunt, you have a winning record right now, and you carry that winning record to the playoffs, look at his schedule. I don't remember it off the top of my head, but I remember when we discussed it in the preseason show before the injury that gave him the starting job. I said he was going to get the starting job, and look at his playoff schedule. I don't remember off the top of my head. Take a look before you make this trade.
Absolutely. Now, here's the one thing that I want to say about this. If you're getting the Delvin Cook, Odell Beckham side of this trade, it's not half bad either.
I mean,
Delvin Cook is the real deal up in Minnesota. He's averaging, he's tied, I think, for 3rd on average per rush, and he's getting all the touches. He's getting the touchdowns. Now, he doesn't have the 6 that Kareem Hunt has. He doesn't have 3 touchdowns and 50 yards plus. A lot of that scheme, but Delvin Cook is a solid running back that you can build a fantasy championship around. And Odell Beckham is a stud.
Yep.
I mean, so there are good things on either side of this trade. And you know, when it initially came in, you looked at me and you said, "Why would they do this trade?
Yeah.
Why?
What's the point?"
It's almost an even swap.
Yeah.
But if you're just looking to trade players, I'd say this is about as even a trade as you're going to get offered in fantasy football.
But one thing I will always say, like we said, we're coming up on the quarter pole, and that's the time to evaluate your team. Are you just making a trade to make a trade? I mean, both of these teams should have a decent record, right?
Sure.
They both should have a winning record, if not 500, a winning record. I don't think you can be 500, obviously, 3 weeks in. But I would hold off on making this trade no matter who I was until next week. I always like to evaluate my team in 4-week blocks. The first 4 weeks, figure out what I got. The next 4 weeks, if I need to make moves, and then the last 4 weeks, obviously, playoff preparation.
So just general trade advice, wait till after week 4.
Week 4.
All right. That's all the time we have for this week on TFS. It is week 4 next week, as Jay mentioned, the quarter pole, and we will be talking all about that. Until next time, everybody, this has been That Football Show with those fantasy guys.
We are those fantasy guys. Good luck to you at the quarter pole.